Good afternoon.
Familiar faces. What's
Some
going on?
familiar faces. How are we? How are we doing?
Good, good. Some office hours.
Good, good. Yes, yes, yes. Right. Let me get rid of that. Right, just before we kick off, well, I suppose first I will intro what we do. So we've done one of these before. It's just an opportunity, really. I mean, to be honest, it's just a really casual conversation. Who knows where the topic is going to go, but I'm sure we're going to talk about quantum. I know Stan's nailed those trades. He'll be with us any second. Also, pleased to be joined by Dawson and Nick. How you both doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having us.
I mean, I'm great. I'm just ready for, a, 3-day weekend, so I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
It's that
half,
time.
I'm half checked out already. I've got one position left. I've covered all my VS, so yeah, I'm just yeah. I mean, I'm ready for some golf, and yeah, just before. I mean, just before as well. We really get into the discussion. Just so you know, this video is for information and educational purposes only. If you're happy with that, yeah, please stick around. If you're not, then we will see you another time. So I'm not sure what we're going to kick off with. Nick, how's your week been?
It's been a little choppy. I think the market has been a little choppy lately, up and down, and I've been mainly focused on the quantum names this week, Palantir as well. But yeah, I mean, I think ever since quantum rebounded, things are kind of just stuck in range at the moment and just chopping around. I think there will be a lot better opportunities next week. So I'm just trying to stay patient with those and just be in and out and proactive with covers or sells, whatever I'm trading, long or short. But I think next week is really going to offer better opportunities. So this week I've kind of just been taking it easy, letting them do their thing, and waiting for a better setups, really.
Yeah, nice. And what time are you jumping in that pool then?
Sorry?
What time are you jumping in the pool? Your
Oh, yeah.
background. You don't even know your background. You
Yeah.
just
No, the
you
pool
just
behind
gave
me.
it away. You just gave it away that it isn't actually your pool now.
It's about -2 degrees where I am right now. So
Oh, okay. So that's a nice
hence
path.
the hat and sweatshirt.
Nice, nice. All right, Chris, how you doing? Waiting on his mic or his sound. Um, yeah, this is what I love, by the way, that you get to Friday and people. I don't know what it is, but in the UK, like we are so aware of our Monday holidays. We're planning them a long way in advance. We're booking holidays. In the US, it just seems like what we've got a Monday off. It's just literally every time. It's just a total surprise.
Chris has got his model face going today.
He's got a serious face, but he hasn't. Obviously, like, is this what happened? He didn't turn up for a mic check, and now we can't hear him. I don't know. I don't know if he can hear us, but we.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We got you now. Yeah, you got the
Okay,
right
fine.
mic
So
now.
I had it up in two chats, so it's getting an echo and everything.
This is exactly what live is meant to be like, full of errors, and it's yeah, fine. We come across nicely polished when we do like a proper recording on YouTube, like with Trading Takes or Trader's Journey, but this is the reality of what it's like behind the scenes.
Yeah, all the back end work.
Sam, I know we were talking yesterday. You had a fairly busy week this week.
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat as Nick, where I've been kind of stepping back a bit this week. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the current environment.
yeah. It's funny because obviously as we were chatting, like we had very different weeks in that you said you're quiet. I'm like, as soon as we get action, like in small cap, particularly like Gapper wise, like PHIO on Monday. As soon as we get that, I mean, there's a lot of people probably took L's on that. I took an L on Monday. Like that was, the biggest backside bounce, I've seen in a while, which took me out, unfortunately. And then I know it faded, offered, I think it's offered, 3 times since then. But like the important thing is like what happens after that. It just means the next day we're going to have some really good action. We had Nature's Miracle on Tuesday, and I always get this the wrong way around, but I think it's NHMI. Wednesday, we had SGBX. Yesterday, we had BMRA, WHLR. Today, we've got VS, which I traded, covered already, and we had TGL as well, Treasure Gold Global. So for me, like as soon as we get something like that, and we used to describe them as black swans and things like that, but I think they happen so frequently now. It's a case of any sort of outlier action or any sort of like tricky sort of behavior or something that acts just a little bit different to what we're used to in terms of its strength. For me, that usually means actually the next day we're going to be it's usually the day I'm excited about, to be honest. Like, I mean, in like the long-term goal, I'd love to just basically not trade and then just turn up literally for like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, have a 3-day weekend, and then wait for the next event.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's a lot more pop and drops. Like in terms of the sector stuff, Nick had touched on, but it's a lot more grindy, choppy, range bound instead of those parabolic dailies that you kind of get those elastic moves. So when I'm getting like those one and done type days, I'm not usually too hands-on personally. I prefer edges in the daily chart stuff, like edge in terms of where it's trading, not edge in terms of process, but when it's in the top end or bottom end of its daily, not when they're just one and done kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it usually like typifies like something like PHIO, and like it's been an interesting one because we've gone from like strong cycle to strong cycle recently, but like like looking back last year, like we had something like that, some sort of event like that would typify a short-term top in the cycle, and it doesn't mean that everything's going to be weak the next day. It just means that we're at the top of the mountain, and each day it just gets a little bit weaker. And we saw that with, if you compared all of like the previous 4 days, it's probably got a little bit weaker each time. And then today, like with VS, for example, it was just literally a few cents past pre-market highs, and then it's been good night since then. And just,
I think it was SGBX the other day that like high a day was literally market open.
Yeah, literally, like, well, we just went power into the open, and then from that point on, and that's the great thing. Like you just get gross extension that perhaps you wouldn't in other markets takes a little bit longer. We just tend to get that extension within like a really short time frame, and then gives it back. And I mean, it's just like elevate. It's one of those cycles where it's kind of like elevator up, elevator down, as opposed to like stairs up, and it being quite a slow process. Just noticed Stan's joined us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing? Oh, it's just enjoying the Friday relaxed day, right? It's more so a nice opportunity to go over some things and reflect on the week, see what's been happening.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna I know, Stan, you wanted to touch on just looking at some of the questions and just seeing if there's any.
Good.
Firstly, I've got to check that there's any I can pop up. Firstly, like messages like this. Yeah, thank you. Blowing kisses right back at you. Nito, thank you. I prefer the kisses, but a wave would be nice. A wave is nice as well. Obviously, like we have had, I think quantum names have been on everyone's lips this week, probably on everyone's watch list. Stan, like, what have your thoughts been there since we had? I mean, you called it like last Sunday. I think it was a week ago, two Sundays ago. You said actually we're going to have some shock in that space.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were. That was a couple weekends ago. We were on Sunday Video with Chris, and that was the week coming into CES, right? So it's just when you have the run that we had in quantum, pretty much, beginning of December, give or take. And it's just been this steady bidding. The narrative has just been one-sided, right? It's just been steady higher. So then going into CES, the Consumer Electronics show, it just provided for the environment where if if that narrative were to change, that would have been a good week to do so because of the spotlight, because of everything that's happening that week. So it, like I said, and it didn't have to be necessarily a bearish sentiment. It was more so, as discussed on the Sunday video, what I was looking for is a definitive action into that coming week, which, having that mindset, having that preparation, then allows me to very quickly adjust on the fly, whether it would be to scale in or scale out or treat, a certain leg as its own thing, or whatever else, as part of your trade management. But the overall idea was, like I said, it's just expecting something that, expecting that environment to shift, and when and if it does, being there to be able to capture it, because your best EV is closest to the turn point as possible, right? That's also your best risk exposure. And then since then, once Jensen came in with the comments, essentially what happened is we had that steady narrative on the way up. Then Jensen comes in with the comments. Now it's steady narrative on the way down. And now what we're looking for is, again, you need something to change that narrative. Whether it would be different comments or whatever, right? Whatever the story is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a discussion of like, when do the best trending moves happen? And they're when you basically have a huge overextension one way or to the other. You have a lot of positioning that is tilted towards one way, and then you have some of the key variables that were holding it all together shift. And so it's just like a giant like Jenga game. And so you just have to identify like, what are the blocks that are actually going to like, pull this game apart. And like the Jensen comments, if you basically have like, Quantum was hyped up into CES 2025, and then the main speaker is like, yeah, this isn't going to be relevant for 20 or 30 years. That's a Jenga block that just gets like knocked out on there. And so you have the cleanest unwinds happen when you have the positioning, when you have the extension, when you have, shorts are exhausted, longs are, all bulled up and everything like that. And then you have a key variable change. And that's why I think we had such a sharp drop without a bounce pretty much for a couple of days, because all that unwinds. And then if you look at the bounce that Quantum has had, you had the exact opposite. So it's showing both sides of the coin, where you had that, huge extension to the downside and people started to get more and more bearish. All the longs were shaken out. And then you had comments from a couple other CEOs saying, well, maybe Quantum will be a couple years away. And so you had those Jenga blocks get put back in. And so you have it's just good to remember the cleanest moves, whether it's an unwind or whether it's a bounce or a rewind up, you have to have basically some kind of mean reversion from an overextension and key variables change. And that tends to be when you have the cleanest moves. Maybe not the longest lasting or anything like that, but how you have the sharpest moves in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just realized I've made a big faux pas and I left my key in the door, and I can just hear that my girlfriend banging on the door trying to get in. Like we said, this is 100% live. Right,
Yeah.
be right back.
Yeah. Very nice. No, those are definitely good comments there, Chris. And it's one of those things, especially with a theme move, with a sector move that we saw. You don't have to be first in order to capture a good portion of the move. As we saw with Quantum, the biggest gap was essentially overnight. But then the opportunity thereafter, even though the range may have been smaller, you now have a set risk. You now have something to base your thesis out of, right? Instead of just that steady high. So a missed range, right, does not necessarily mean, missed opportunity. It's just about where can you identify the next level of risk exposure, right? As we're looking at RGTI today, you can kind of see the let me see if I can make the screen a little bit bigger, maybe. Let's see.
Nice.
This might help.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah,
So as we can see with RGTI, this is essentially where we're sort of creating this local top. So for me, it makes sense to risk something against against that level. And this is just an example. I'm actually not in RGTI. I'm in QUBT and QBTS. But the idea being, similar as like I said, it's the Q basket, it's the quantum basket move. And for me, the reason why I went to QUBT and QBTS versus RGTI today is just their overall relative weakness to the volatility of the basket. So you have something like IONQ, where it's, as far as leaders are concerned, this is something that a lot of people are looking at. So this being the leader, then within that you have, I think, RGTI follows pretty closely, and then once you get into QUBT, you can see the sudden structure shift of the chart itself, similar with QBTS. It's a much more aggressive move because it relative weakness against those two.
Yeah, and I think this might be a good question for Chris, just quickly on this topic. And I think he's talking about the Q names. Yeah. Sorry, he's talking about the quantum names. But what has the effect of, in terms of options, have they had an effect on this unwind?
Especially initially. So options is another one of those kind of key factors. So when you have sector moves like this that trend for a long time and they're associated with bullish flow, so it basically just means that you have large amounts of call options being bought on all different time frames. It can be millions and millions of dollars worth. And that's just part of the positioning. And so as they go on for weeks or a month or something like that, and you have people just rolling their calls higher and higher, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from underneath it. All those calls have to get on, basically they have to unwind, and that contributes to the smoothness of that flush down too. So I think there's a distinction to be made between, a lot of these names that are kind of the smallish to mid-cap names, especially the mid-caps, they have options on them. And a lot of times the options are somewhat active, but it's only during really key times that you have like gamma moves up or huge unwinds, and those are the times when the options market can really give you an edge. Whereas a lot of the other times you'll have a couple 100,000 in call flow, a couple 100,000 in put flow, and you'll just kind of get a bunch of choppy moves. So wait for like those huge pivot points when the options, the narrative, everything all lines up.
Yeah, no, great thoughts. And this might be a good one for you. Well, this is a good one for you, Dawson, as our first Red Day specialist. As well as some other stocks in the past, non-quantum names, multiple day runners would unwind a lot smoother. Now the first Red Day, the volume seems to disappear and it turns to chop.
Yeah, the quantum names themselves, I didn't do super well on them. Let me see if I can pull up a chart here. See if it'll let me. Give me a second.
Should do. Gotcha.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, like RGTI, like basically after these like overextensions and these little pullbacks right through here, when we get those multiple days, like that's kind of where I'm thriving. And they weren't acting as clean. This sector as a whole wasn't typical. This one was the best one, the cleanest one there on the backside. But once that kind of first red day came in, there was a lot more chop, a lot more clear outs. So these were kind of avoids for me after this, like in the middle of December there. Once this catalyst came in, kind of like Stock B always says, where you've got like that episodic pivot that changes the whole trajectory of the name. The guys were just talking about it. So now we have a whole new catalyst in So it's not really a fresh chart, but in my mind, these are now starting from, like, I have to look at these charts from a new lens at this point. The stocks themselves is a big picture whole, but the first red days past this middle of December opportunity, I found them to be a lot choppier. Typically, in December, we had plenty, just kind of off radar names. But I think when you get sectors involved, Nate always says they last a lot longer you think, and then once they start pulling back, they pull back a lot further than you think. So you just kind of have that tailwind of the underlying bid that doesn't let them fade as cleanly. So I think that's a notable point when you have a sector running, is that like when you've got like Bitcoin stocks, for example, you've got to keep Bitcoin on watch. When you've got quantum names, you got to keep stuff like IONQ on watch. You got to keep that anchor in the back of your mind when you're trading these names. They're not just simple face value first red days. There's a lot more behind the scenes than just a small cap that's ran for 3 days and you're looking for a pullback.
Yeah, and I think as well, like this comment also is with asking about the non-quantum names as well, and I think it's a lot of it, like we're in a strong market at the moment as well, like in terms of things are like when we were in that position, well, prior to PHIO on Monday, we were in a position where actually we weren't getting deep fades, where we were getting like a first red day that would then rebound and then retake green or whatever it is. We just had that strong underlying bid. So I think it's possibly just indicative of the cycle that we're in, and just to be it being a strong market, as opposed to it require, I don't know, it obviously requires thought, but in terms of it's more of a reflection of the cycle as opposed to how any one trade I think would transpire. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Dawson, or
Yeah, like even Kit here, for example, like this is the first red day right over here. You can see the super limited range, and it's got to churn through this whole new shareholder base that comes in. I'm not the only one trading overextended first red days. So this day is kind of like that transition where people are selling first time it goes red, shorts are coming in first time it goes red. You've got longs trying to buy the dip off the pullback. So they're kind of churning through them on that first day, and then they're sort of picking a direction after that, whether it's holding higher or fading lower. But it almost seems like a SES, for example, is the best one. In prior market conditions, this daily going from 30 cents to 250 on this parabolic speed up volume, that's A plus setup for me. And look at how long it took to churn all those traders up here until you get like a daily failed follow through setup under 180s. But that was a lot cleaner here once the backside was in than trying to short this parabolic and getting chopped up on multiple days. So I think it's definitely a sign of the times itself.
Yeah, no, exactly. We got Stan rejoin. I don't know where Stan went. Stan gets these fits of giggles occasionally, and you'll notice that you'll see him on camera, and all of a sudden he'll find someone will send him a message or something, and then suddenly he's off.
Yeah.
You just gotta hide for a minute.
Yeah, I get the same way. I crack up at stuff. But Dawson, to your point, I think it's also worth noting that, you know, if you're looking at the chart up there and you see it's like a multi-day kind of like failed follow through going on, a lot of it's the market cycle too. So if you remember back to like 2022, you know, more of a bearish market, and like every single pop on a small cap name or anything like that would immediately just get stuffed. And so, you know, like you had all the breakout traders, like, you know, this had a news catalyst, like this is the first green day, and it's like they're frustrated. They're like, it has no liquidity. It's because people are using that to basically just get out. And it's kind of the same, you know, on the opposite side. When you have a very bullish cycle, very bullish market, a lot of times you have a lot of people looking to chase these stocks. And so as they're starting to roll over, the dip buyers are saying this is just a dip along the way. And so they're trying to get in there. And so that's why you get these big choppy moves instead of just a super clean, you know, wind and unwind. I think the market cycle has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, completely. And Nick, in terms of like your style, have you just been trying to capture? I mean, there's great range on these names, even when it from like perhaps a longer term traders looking at it on an intraday level. I'm thinking actually it's pretty choppy, but like that's what you thrive off, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thrive on the range and the volatility that it provides. But, you know, to touch on Stan's point earlier, and to go back to RGTI, I mean, the stock went from $1.25 to $21.25. That's an insane move, right? But I think a lot of people also exhausted out. You know, it definitely, it had a big move. I think it was up to 12.5. And then, you know, it came all the way back down to 650-ish. So it dropped like 50%. And I'm sure a lot of people thought that, you know, that was it, right? That was the move on Quantum. It's done now. Probably be an easy short back to where it came from. And then we just had that gap up and run straight up to the 20s. So again, to reflect on what Stan said, it's so much easier to just wait for all that to happen, come in after and pick up the pieces, because now you have like actual levels to risk on. And I think that's really important when trading these types of names. You know, they can run a lot farther than you think, then they can unwind a lot farther than you think. So it's just better to wait for the chart to form so that you can develop a strategy, essentially, you know, what your risk levels are based on, you know, what it did in the past. And it should be, you know, a much more headache-free type trade. So I think that's been important with the quantums, and you know that's going to keep happening with different sectors, right? We're going to have, you know, different themes pop up and hang around, make big moves. So it's really just, it's so important not to step in front and exhaust out. You know, have tight stops when trading these names. But yeah, I love trading them just because of the liquidity and range that they provide daily. But you know, I wouldn't get caught up with a bias and swinging these names and oversizing and things like that, because you have to think like they are very crowded, right? Like everybody knows that we're probably pretty far away from a quantum computer coming out and any of these companies being remotely successful. But if everybody's thinking that, you know, how often does that play out, right? So it's definitely something that you have to keep in mind. I think RGTI was easy to borrow for a while, which definitely made it more difficult to short. It just constantly felt crowded. Every time it dipped, it immediately soaked. So you can see these things, you can pick them up in the tape and prepare yourself. Like, okay, this is a crowded trade. I'd better wait for a better setup. You know, like I'm not the only one with this idea. And, you know, a stock that goes from $1 to 20, you have plenty of meat on the bone for a downside move. So it's, you know, it's better to be late than early. You know, I would argue that every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, I do think it's amazing though, the power of one comment. One comment literally snapped these in half, and like all of a sudden, all the excitement, all of the hype was just deflated, like that.
I think it especially matters in things that aren't fundamental driven. If it's all narrative, then you basically can have something, you know, pop that bubble a lot faster than like a cycle turning. So for example, like you might have a commodity like copper, like running super well for like a year, and then, you know, all the copper stocks are running with it, and then you have the price of copper start to go down, and so you have all the stocks follow, and that's like a very like long-term, like swing driven, predictable thing, because it's fundamentals. Because on the way up, their margins expand, they make more money, they do, you know, everything fundamental. On the way down, the margins compress, they make less money, all that stuff. But when you have something that's not fundamental driven, it's not driven by, you know, margins or orders or revenue or growth or anything like that, but it's all just about, you know, hearsay potential. We think that big tech is going to really, you know, pile into quantum, and then you have the big tech people saying like, no. I mean, that's your thesis, that it can reverse that easy. It's not fundamental driven, it's potential driven. And if you have someone say that the potential is not really there yet, at least, you know, it went on the initial sell off, then that can really pop a lot of these big moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I tell you what, Velkrosky, you can come back anytime. Although it is a slight cheat that we happen to know Rob, and yeah, we chat to him on a daily basis in IU, but I still take it, even if it's not even aimed at me personally. But yeah, thank you, Rob. You can come anytime. I mean, this is probably, hey Josh, another member of IU. This is probably a fair comment as well. Probably him and I don't know, maybe Trump. There's probably only a few people, Zuckerberg maybe, who could have done the damage that Jensen did.
Elon, definitely.
Elon, yeah, I mean Elon as well. Like, but it's in that like bracket of there's probably I don't know. There's only
No, and
20 people in the world, maybe.
right, but I think essentially it doesn't really tell you much, right? His comments, the only thing his comments told us were that the reason why we went up so high was just, maybe a little bit too much, right? It's not that it's impossible, it's not that it's not coming. It's more so, hey, Earth is calling, let's kind of settle down on at what pace we should be moving at. So I think that's kind of what the comments really meant. So that's why, with moves like that, with themes, I mean, you can't expect for it to, just go back to zero or go back to $1. It's gonna take a while, because now you have created a market. Now you've turned, however many millions or billions of shares. So that that's gonna take some time to unwind. So that's just something to keep in mind with the quantum basket. Is I think the opportunity is more so scaling appropriately where risk exposure makes sense, and then you have a particular leg, whether down or up. But to think that it's going to go back to where it came from right away, I think that's ambitious.
Yeah, I'd say very ambitious. Got this question from Vital4644, great name. Why are they dropping today? I just woke up and they've gone from green to red.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vital, I think it's important to Sam, I don't know if we can bring up a chart.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just kind of understand and be familiar with market structure and market distribution and how liquidity flows and all of that good stuff. So what you're seeing on a higher time frame, what you're seeing on a higher level is exactly that. If it's that liquidity coming out, you can't keep going straight down in a straight line. It's not how liquidity works. So you need to create these various pockets and opportunities where, yeah, it looks like that, right? It opens, it shoves higher, it looks green, everything is great, and then it reverses, right? That liquidity comes back in, and lower it goes. So I think what you would need to keep in mind is mainly your time frame that you're trading these. If you're there, and I just talked about that earlier today, there are times where I will trade, I'll trade something, a particular ticker, and I'll have and trade it off the 1 minute chart. But then there's times like today where I'm trading mainly off the 15-minute chart. So hold on, let me put on my my trades. So today, for instance, I mainly kept it over on the 15-minute chart, because what I care about today is more so towards the end of day, because it's Friday, because it's a 3-day weekend, because of the nice bounce that we had this week, et cetera, et cetera. So my goal with QBTS and QUBT is to be there more so for the latter part. And I've sized down some before the call started, because it's just responsible thing to do. I'm not gonna necessarily be teeth synced in, ready to do it. So yeah, it's just, but in terms of why are they going down today? Why are they reversing today? It's just part of the natural action of a theme, right? Of a sector move.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just really hoping they would speed up and just to give that like relatively straight. I don't say relatively, like nothing's easy, but like that, just that straightforward fade type day. Whereas like with this action, with it being a little bit range bound, actually it really lends itself to, you know, like your style, Nick's style of trading, where you have to be proactive, rescale. And that, to be honest, isn't one of my strengths, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
Interesting comment here.
what is it? Let's see.
Don't trade on Friday afternoons.
There's low volume volatility. I mean, hey, it's
I think it depends on the Friday.
right. There's definitely cases where that's true. I think today for me, for instance, is definitely a little bit easier type of a day. Easier in terms of I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm not trying to make this the best day because of that, right? Because of knowing that it's a 3-day weekend, knowing that it's Friday, knowing that there might be some sort of outlier risky situations. Now, whether that's due to lack of volume or volatility or whatever, we can insert any qualifying term there. I think if the setup is there, you got to take it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're here to trade, and if a setup comes through that that you execute, that is part of your plan, it's part of your tool belt, then you have to take it. You got to take that rep.
And certain styles actually lend well to certain like periods like that too. So if like a Friday is like a lower volume, it might be a little bit more choppy for some styles, but do you know what's really good for is breaking news trades? Because if you have a piece of important news come out and you have low volume, you basically have, that news can cause bigger moves on a low volume day than it would on a normal volume day a lot of times.
I mean, for me, I don't really care what day it is. If it sets up, it sets up. I don't really. I mean, my brain, quite frankly, I try not to complicate it any more than that, or I usually get myself in trouble.
Yeah. And it depends, right? I mean, there's times where, I just don't feel good. I mean, again, it's about just being in tune with what's happening, right? If you get into a position and it's Friday afternoon and it's just all up and down and it's messy and you're fighting it and you continue to fight it, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's not because it's Friday. Sure, you can make that the excuse, but there's just something else there that needs work on.
Yeah, for sure. Now Dawson's got to drop off. I think he's going up into the Canadian mountains this weekend.
Yeah, we got a little trader meetup planned this weekend, so I wanted to hop on, do a little session, but I've got some other guys to meet up with. It'll be a fun weekend.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, and be careful with those rocks.
That's right. See you guys later.
See you, Dawson.
Yeah. Bye, Dawson.
See you later. Jet, this is so true as well. Volkowski again. So just in case anyone's wondering, so Stan does sessions like this regularly in RU, and he regularly has to size. Well, I say he has to. He regularly will size down, obviously, to be on camera, and then usually you regret it quite quickly. Well, some of the time you regret it quite quickly. They just goes.
Yeah. There are times, but then also it provides a good opportunity because then we can execute something live, right? Trade wise, and then go over the concept, right? So we had a recent example. I think it was with RGTI where we were doing a midday session, and I don't know where it was. I don't know which day it was, Sam, but it was one of these days where it just didn't work, and we had to stop, right? It stopped out, but it worked out nicely in the end because it provides you as the viewer or participant to see the concept and then it being applied, and what that environment feels like, what those emotions look like, how to go through those emotions, how to handle that, and all of that good stuff. So, but anyways, We have any other questions? Let's see. And then
Say our guy agrees with you, Chris. Trade breaking news on a Friday.
Yeah, there's someone in IU, Ryan, who's really good at those types of trades, especially on low volume days, where you'll basically have a piece of news come out, you'll have some kind of option flow associated with it, and that you can get a lot of 5x, 10x, 20x types of moves on those. So, and it's really helpful being in IU, and especially with having people we have some awesome news traders in there that are dropping news before they even hit mainstream scanners. We have the AI scrapers that are doing all that. So if you can get a Friday or a low volume day and get the news a little bit faster than other people, and have people who can monitor the options activity and doing all that stuff, you can get some really, really nice trades on days like that.
Yeah, and on that, it's probably a good time to let everyone know that we've got a test drive at the moment. What is it, Chris? It's it's on offer. Was it $50 or something?
14 days for $49. They're going to close it down soon. It either ends today
I think it ends tonight. So you've got 12 hours if you're on Eastern.
Yeah, and people ask us all the time because we're obviously biased, but we're in IU, we love IU, it's all we use for trading. So it's all the tools and everything that we're using every day. Of course, we're going to be we recommend what we actually use. But a lot of people are I've been interested in IU. I just don't know if I want to commit to a full subscription or something like that. So every now and again, we'll open up these trials where you basically can get access to everything in IU, all the educational libraries, the morning broadcast, midday study session, all the tools, all the commentary, live study sessions, and you can do it for $50. So if the financial burden of $50 is too high to give something like that a try, then it's maybe somewhere else would be better, but that's pretty reasonable for 2 weeks of access.
It's probably going to be difficult to trade. And I don't mean that, obviously, I appreciate everyone's in a different financial situation, but equally it's going to be difficult to be trade. And actually, what can it save you in the long run as well with $50 that could potentially, with some of the news plays and alerts, that's, you can literally one of them and you made that back instantly.
Yeah. Yesterday we had two. We had NUKK, our AI news scraper, hit it before anyone else, and then Judah confirmed it a couple of seconds after that, and it went from $20 to $30 in the course of 5 or 10 minutes. So if someone has a $10,000 trade that they had on it and they just made 30% or whatever that is, 20%, then you just made 20 times your trial cost right there. So it's just any kind of room or chat or anything, it should have a positive return on investment if it's effective. So IU is clearly effective. You get these trades not just once or twice a day, you get them constantly throughout the day. So as long as someone actually has a strategy that they're sticking to, and if they have the best tools and people to kind of help put that in front of them, then it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, and you're spot on there, because for example, you mentioned tools. It's pretty much all I use. I use all the scanners. Just before we kicked off today, we had just a little taste of what our main chat is, Momentum Chat. We also had Hod Log Scanner. God, nearly made a mouthful of that. And then that's all I find that I need. I try and keep it simple, and I like that it's all within one interface. So yeah, was that $49, right, Chris? You said?
Yeah, $49.
And you got 12 hours.
Yeah, 14 days of access to everything in IU. So you can go back and you can look at the last 5 years of video content, setups, everything is in there, and you can look at it all. So we do these maybe once a year or something. Last year we only did it once, and it was for a week. So this year we're extending it for 2 weeks. So it's kind of a now or never thing. So if you want to check it out, now's the time to do it. Don't wait another 8 months and then be is there going to be another deal drop? It just, take advantage of it while it's here.
Yeah. And someone's asking if there's, I'm pretty sure you can use the 14-day trial again. But if you want to sign up for longer, just DM one of us on Twitter and we'll point you in the right direction. I'm at Trades Turbo, and we could drop tweets in below. Cool. This is another interesting question, an interesting topic. With the inauguration on Monday, markets closed. Anyone expecting or watching DJT into this afternoon?
Stan, you're muted.
You're muted, Stan.
Oh, I think I was unmuted and muted myself.
Yeah.
I think the easy move is over on DJT. Like if you're looking at it now, you're a bit too late.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity? I mean, let's take a look. I'm assuming looking at it for like the long side, but again, I think you're up in this range where you're one comment, one PR away from either a swipe up or a fail. Like it's really 50-50 to me at this point to have any conviction. Now, if you were prepared for it, coming out of this tight mid 30s range where you could have maybe risked $1.50, and then be a seller here to where you can lock some in, then maybe pick some up on the dips, then yeah, I can see that potential play. But here to try to anticipate something because of Monday's inauguration, I think it's risky, at least for me.
I agree. I think the move started on Monday, and if you're buying it on Friday of this week, you're just chasing it at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it was on Monday. It was clean, real clean break, daily break, 37. I think if you had a good average, maybe you can ride it into.
And
Monday,
you had good risk too. I mean, 32.5 was your downside risk that I see.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you wanted to play TJT before the inauguration, I think it was the beginning of this week. It might have a late day move today, but it would be a scalp trade. It wouldn't be anything I would swing.
I mean, it'd be nice if it did gap up. Like when obviously that was a big move a couple months ago, was when obviously he did win presidency. DGT went nuts at 4 a.m. I know you took advantage of that, Stan.
Yeah. I think yeah.
It was like 50. Was it mid?
Yeah, like 50. Yeah, like 54s. I mean, I have the chart up here. Yeah, it was like 50.
Yeah,
50,
went all the way up to almost 55.
Yeah. I think, and in pre-market, it was even higher, right? It was like 60s or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, I mean, you can see it here, right? You can see how it's just right into this low 40s, mid 40s range. So your expected value out of the trade is it just doesn't sit right. And yeah, and like Nick said, not that there aren't any scalp opportunities. Sure, you can do that if you find the trade. Absolutely, go for it. But just keep in mind, where in the race are you entering, right? Is this mile 2 out of 20 and you got plenty of room to go? Like you're entering over here, mid 30s, low 30s, or are you coming in hot and heavy mile 18 out of 20, trying to make the best out of the last 2 miles because you missed the first 18, right? You got to be careful with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think we're all like this as well. Like whatever happens, I think Tuesday when we obviously can trade again, hopefully something sets up then. But I just think like we touched on Friday into Monday, I don't know. I just don't know, and I wouldn't feel comfortable. Making a call. I mean, Stan, maybe you can pull this one up. SPCB, probably a question for you, Chris. Can I get your thoughts on SPCB liquidity trap, low vol, but still think shorts are present? Is this one on your radar, Chris?
No, this one's not on my radar, but that does seem to fit some of the characteristics. I usually do kind of a deep dive when I'm looking at liquidity traps because there's so many details that matter. Like was not in this particular case, but like was there an offering in there? How many days has it been since the initial run up? What are the key levels? What's looking left, like to the far left? So I can't just give like one off, like just looking at this now. I'm not looking at it in a thorough enough way to actually like give my trading thoughts on it because I'm not trading it. But if you want, we can just talk about general, ideas with liquidity traps and what that setup is and how that plays out and what to look for. So if anyone's not familiar, a liquidity trap is a setup that we use a lot in Investors Underground. and it has kind of three parts to it. And the first part is you have some kind of stock, usually gap up. It's one of like the main small cap runners of the day. It'll be up 100%, couple 100%. It'll have 50 million volume, or maybe 200 million volume, or 500 million volume, something like that. So the first thing is you basically have a huge gapper, huge run up, and then huge volume. And then a lot of times people are shorting those down. That's what a lot of small cap short selling is. But then what you're looking for is for a name like that, what happens the next day? And so if you have that name kind of like slide down a little bit, and the next day the volume goes to about 10% of the previous day's volume. So let's say it was 100 million volume the first day, and then the next day the stock has come down a little bit, and maybe the volume is 10 million instead of 100 million. And then the next day, so like 2 days after, the volume drops from 10 million to 1 million. And so basically you have all these people who are were in there on the short side, assuming that this had high liquidity at 100 million volume the first day, and they're kind of staying there, they're swinging short it, and then the volume goes down to 10 million, and then that next day the volume's only at 1 million or something like that. So what can happen is you can have a ton of shorts in there that are now kind of still in there, but the liquidity dried up. And so if they're forced to cover, or if they get callbacks for those shares, or something triggers that, you basically can have a huge amount of shares that need to cover while there's no liquidity there, and that supply and demand imbalance drives the stock up. And so a lot of times, let's say you had a stock, you initially run up to $5, and then it faded back to $3, and the liquidity dried up. A lot of times it'll squeeze back from 3 back up to 5, or sometimes up to 6 or 7, depending on the setup. So that's a very repeatable setup. It's one that we use all the time. And so that is what a liquidity trap is. A stock that had a huge first day, big run up, then the next day it fades down, the volume dries up, and then the next day the volume dries up even more. And then at some point you usually have some kind of event that triggers a cover, and then it swipes back up to either the previous highs or past those previous highs.
Mm-hmm. And just to add as well, like linking to what we just spoke about with IU, that could be a real edge as well with IU, in that you've got people like Chris who, like, their focus is liquidity traps. So it's something that we are talking about on and literally a daily basis, because there's always something to talk about with within that setup. Right. Well, we're getting to the end of the hour. What else do we want to talk about? I'm just looking to see if there's any questions coming through.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything going on,
BRMA. Well, I'm struggling. Do you know, I am really struggling saying tickets this week. Really struggling. Ever since NHMI, for some reason, I don't know why, I just have to really slow it down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that what? Can you guys just say that quickly? NHMI. Maybe I should just do it quickly like that. BRMA was another amazing RUAI. Now we've got into RUAI. Now I've got to say that as well. I can't do that quick. From 50 cents to over $1 with plenty of I mean, BMRA was a great opportunity yesterday for sure. No problem, Spardo. That's what I mean. Like, the fun bit with doing these for sure is live chat, especially when you got people making jokes and stuff. Stan, can you show an example of a clear out, any chart, and how would you trade this setup? A good one. If you do you need one? Do you need an example?
I mean,
I'm just thinking from today. Just thinking VS from today, just to keep it relevant. I mean, as in, well, it's always going to be relevant, but keep it current, I should say.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I was going to say, if you want me to give you a hypothetical one, or go back through my charts and find you an actual trade, but we can do either.
I mean, this is good enough if it qualifies for you.
Yeah, so I mean, this VS, right? This is a good example of a clear out type of a trade, and usually before you look for a trade, right? You got to create that thesis. You got to have a plan. So for me, I usually start from higher time frame, something like a daily chart looks great. And then obviously, if you're coming in pre-market, you're sitting here in the 350s or so, 340s. So looking at it, you already know that if you just look left into the daily chart, you can see where your previous highest volume bar was. So that essentially becomes your supply that will be on the to risk against. But overall, that $3 to $4 range is your supply hitting. So then you can get into, once you're intraday in pre-market, now that you've seen this action right here, right? The pre-market action, it comes down, it goes below VWAP, it traps, swipes through, and then it clears out this previous congestion area, right? You can see this clear out of the previous congestion area. And then it fails again. And all of this is still pre-market, right? So as you approach the open, now you have several points of infliction that you can risk against, right? So if you're coming into open, it swipes up. You have your previous congestion area here. You have a previous clear out here. So anything over 350s, now this is coming into the range with the expectation of sizing in as it clears out the previous top of 370 to 377s, and then sizing into that move to react for that clear out. So that is something that would be, it's how I would trade. I generally am not awake in this area here, so I wouldn't expect 99% of the times like I'm asleep over here. So I generally take that information, as I explained it just a few moments ago, take that information into the open, define my levels like I have in this chart. That way it becomes a no-brainer, right? I'm not making decisions when it's going into 370s. That decision has already been made. I already know what I'm going to do. All I have to do is react to it and then do the right thing. Meaning, if it does not fail, or if it fails and it soaks and it swipes up again, then you got to get out, right? You got to stop. You got to do the right thing.
Got to do the right thing. Yeah, I hope that helps. I mean, that seems to be the last question. Oh, hang on, we got Vital is back. What tools in trading are most useful to see reversals off the low, or the lower the low in a chart? I know level 2 can be useful, but it can be hard to read. Who wants to take a shot at that one? I mean, we're getting you guys on the spot, which I like.
Yeah. No, I mean this. I'll take a crack at it, and you guys feel free to jump in. So Vital, for me, I think what trading tools are most important. I think you have your foundational tool belt, right? Things that always come into play, how to read charts, how to do all those things. But then the other tools in trading, they change with time, with environment, with cycles, right? So as far as how do you notice a particular reversal, I mean, there are many different ways you can. For me, I like to look at something like a higher time frame, right? So you look at RGTI, and I'll look at these peaks here versus the 10 and 11s and 12s, and as price starts to approach those levels, then I can start to focus into the level 2 and the tape and see if, as we approach the 12 level, do we see a seller come into the tape? Do we see the demand start to diminish because maybe now the cover has come in and it was not long side demand anyway. It was just a short side cover. So all of these little things you have to pay attention to near key areas such as lows and previous peaks, and that's as far as, is there one particular tool? I don't believe there's one particular tool. It's the combination of everything that allows you to see those.
Yeah. Nick, any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with Stan. I mean, I would say I would use the chart and prior lines to know, where things may want to revert back to the mean, depending on how far they've gone up or down. But yeah, I mean, it really is something that you have to be adaptable to, and it's constantly changing. It really depends on the market that we're in. If we're in a bull market, much more comfortable buying something long for a reversal off the open as opposed to a more bearish market. And the opposite would be true. So I think it really just depends, and you have to combine your skill set to really get that risk management under control.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And any thoughts to wrap that one up, Chris, or what have the boys covered it?
Yeah, I mean, for spotting lows, I mean that's a whole like topic in and of itself. But I would say just for me, when I have like good bounce trades, I'm looking like Stan was just saying, I zoom out. So I have daily levels on the charts, and I'm seeing like, for example, if someone could pull up like QUBT or something like that. So you could see as like the quantum names were, crashing down, and like as they get more extended to the downside, that's when I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be looking for a bounce trade at some point on this. And so like it could be the day before, it could be, 2 days before. I'm going to be drawing key levels on the daily chart, looking for what area has been a very significant area of support in the past. So the first thing I want to see is, some kind of key level or area that could potentially act as support. And then I also want to see, is the stock that's crashing down into that, I want to see a multi-day move down. I want to see a huge percentage move down. I want to see volume increasing on the way down. And, like a reason for it, you basically want to have like a huge move that people keep piling in more and more short as they get more conviction as it goes down. And then when you have peak bearishness, peak bearish positioning at the same time that's coming in contact with a huge support level, that's when I'm looking for the turn. And so you zoom in. So instead of looking at the daily level, you zoom in now and you look at that day. You see how it's acting. You see what is the volume doing corresponding with the price movement down. Did you just have a capitulation with the highest volume candle flush and then come back up? And now it's starting to make like some higher lows. So you're kind of like piecing together this whole thesis. At least that's how I do it, from like a macro daily view all the way down to like when it's actually happening. And then if you can get a good entry and you assume that as that bearish positioning comes off or as that cover comes in, you could have a significant move to the upside, then that is what gives me conviction. So it's not just looking at one thing, it's looking at a whole picture of things and piecing that together.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. BW says, thank you, Stan. I think that was for the clear out question. I mean, BW, if you have my Twitter, feel free to
And actually,
so DM me if you want to. I'll send you my chart.
while we're on the clear out, I wanted to show this SOUN because I was watching this today, and this it almost got there, right? That's what I was trading for. At least that's what my thesis was. BW is you can see on the higher time frame, right? I had already put these lines in, a long time ago, but essentially I was looking for SOUN to speed into this mid 15s, into this 15.5s, 70s area, and it just couldn't quite get there, and it failed. But this would have been, just imagine this being, instead of it being 1520, imagine it did the 1570s, then this would have been a perfect example of a clear out and how I would have traded it. I didn't trade this today again because it did not meet that criteria. It didn't speed up enough for me, and I took it off radar, and then by the time I put it back, it failed. So, but anyways, just wanted to add that little color in there because that's what trading is, right? Trading isn't always perfect. You can have the best plan and the best, and something happens or something doesn't happen, and you have to be okay. You have to be okay with that, right? Because the longer you spend time not being okay with it, the more time you waste not focusing on where you should be and what's truly moving that needle for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, anyone know when the promo ends for the 2-week trial? Any chance it closes on Monday or Tuesday? It actually closes tonight at midnight. But I think if you genuinely can't subscribe, can't join up today, then I'm sure if you DM one of us on Twitter, maybe we can pull I don't know. Maybe we can pull a few strings, right, Chris? Maybe.
Yeah, and Sam, I don't know if we already have a link, but for anyone who's interested in the trial, basically click on the IU account, and we should have it pinned there. But then if someone doesn't see that, anyone who's interested in that trial, just comment interested, and we will reach out to you and follow up and make sure that you get access to the deal so you don't have to dig around for it. So if anyone wants that deal before it closes tonight, just comment interested, we'll reach out to you. And if you just want to do it on your own, then just click on the IU Twitter and you'll have the link there. But make sure you do that because, we do these sometimes once a year. And so it's kind of a now or never thing if you want to try IU for a very affordable price.
Cool. Nice one, Jay. Welcome aboard.
Awesome. We'll see you in there.
See you in there. Last question from me. We'll just go around the clock, starting with Nick. What are you doing this weekend? 3-day weekend. Anything exciting planned?
It is my brother's birthday, so I'll be out celebrating with him.
In freezing conditions.
In freezing conditions, yeah. Looking forward.
The beer will be cold then. I like it. Chris, what about you?
That's tonight, Nick?
Yeah.
Nice. Enjoy. I'm just doing some work this weekend. Nothing too crazy. I need to get outside. I feel like I was comparing a picture of myself recently to a year ago, and I'm 25 shades lighter than I was because I don't see sunlight. So I'm freaking Edward in Twilight right now. So I need to get some sunshine.
Chris, with your
sunshine.
son,
So I'm
you're you're half Italian or something?
I'm Sicilian. I'm gonna get my dual citizenship revoked.
Yeah,
I don't have it anyway, but I need to get some sunlight, so I'll go outside.
Yeah, and just can we just quickly confirm that you two, as in Chris and Stan, you two are not in adjacent rooms, correct?
No,
Stan,
we're not.
in Vegas, somewhere. Can you reach out and just,
I know, I was
try and get a high five or something?
we
need someone with. It's like those prison photos that.
Yeah.
There you go. Stan, what about your weekend?
Nothing too major for me, man. It's just I just have some random things to take care of, organize. But yeah, just we'll take it easy. That's the plan. That's the plan these days, right? I'd like more of such days.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
And you've got a big move coming up and stuff, haven't you? So you got tons on the plate, right?
Yeah. I have tons, and then I have to start unwinding some things that I currently have going on, and but no, it's just good old 3-day weekend.
Good old thing. Yeah. I mean, I've been organized this time. So obviously, living in the UK, I'm the only person with Monday off, pretty much. So I've actually organized. I've been organized. My goal this year is to use these days off well. So I've got a round of golf booked. So
good.
Yeah.
You should. I was gonna say, Sam, you should turn that into a business, because if you're the only person off on a Monday, you can take requests from people that need things.
Yeah, I should. Yeah. I'd just be working for Deliveroo or something.
No, call your neighbor, be like, well, you let me know how important this is for you. 70 pounds, I'll do it.
Show me the money. Yeah. As great as that sounds, when you're addicted to golf, getting getting a round of golf in where you're not worried about trading, work, anything like that, it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, thank you guys for your time today.
And one, I don't know if you saw it, Sam, from Marv, are we all 4 full-time? I am. I believe all 4 of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is the trial a discount? So it's not technically a discount. It's a unique offer. You cannot usually get a 2-week sign up. It's just an opportunity for everyone to give it a test drive. So it's $49 for 2 weeks. And then after that, we can have a conversation about staying longer. Kakarot. I'm so bad. I can't talk today, but
we will reach out to that person.
Kakarot, we will reach out to you, and if we don't like reply to this tweet or wherever you're watching it, just write it again, and we will get to you. And Nito, I think that's a perfect way to end it. Thank you, IOU team. Great session. Have a great weekend. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for joining me. I mean, let us know, like, comment and like, subscribe. You know, do that, and we'll do more of these. Like I mean, I think the four of us, the five of us with Dawson. You know, we'll get Nate back on. Like, we're keen that we enjoy these conversations. Like, it's fun for us as well. So yeah, show us some love, and then we'll do some more. So thank you, Nick. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Stan. Have a great 3-day weekend. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Enjoy your 3 days, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you in IU, and see you on Tuesday. Thanks, guys.
That sounds
All
good.
right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.